Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I ain't never been one to spook easy. When you spend as much time on the road as I have, you get used to the bumps in the night. Could be a possum or raccoon rustling around your rig, the wind playing tricks in the trees, sounds that just come with the territory when you live half your life in a big old truck cab. But let me tell you what me and my buddy Frank experienced last month still gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Frank and I go way back, been driven together for the better part of a decade now. We mainly haul building supplies for a lumber outfit back home. Decent enough work and the pay ain't half bad. Lots of miles up and down the coast delivering wood of all shapes and sizes to contractors, carpenters, and such. Just pick up the load and follow the instructions on our ticket. Easy peasy. Anyways, a few weeks back, Frank and I were headed down to Georgia to drop off a trailer full of oak planks for some custom home builder. Nice long haul, just the kind I like. Had my tunes cranking and a highway humming beneath my tires. Frank was following behind in the other rig. Things were smooth sailing for the first few 100 miles, but just our luck there was a nasty storm brewing ahead. Now storms don't usually faze old Frank or me none. When you drive as much as we do, dealing with rain or snow is just another day on the job. But this storm, it came out of nowhere. Black clouds rolled in quick, and before we knew it, the heavens opened up, dropping buckets of rain the size I ain't never seen before. The wipers could barely keep up, and the highways were flooding something fierce. Frank got on the CB and said we should pull off till it passed. Easier said than done, though, cause we were smack dab in the middle of the backwoods. No rest stops or exits for miles around according to my GPS. As the rain got worse, visibility dropped to almost zero. I slowed to a crawl, hazards flashing. White knuckling the wheel, peering desperately through the waterlogged windshield for a place I could pull off. Finally, I spotted what looked like a little dirt road cutting through the trees. Looked more like a path for four-wheelers than a proper road, but it was better than nothing. I radioed Frank and told him I was pulling off. He said 10 to 4, and I eased Betsy, that's my rig, onto the muddied path. It was a tight squeeze between big oak trees, but I just made it rumbling deeper into the forest till I found a little clearing. There was just enough room for both our rigs, so I hunkered down to wait out the storm. With the truck shut off, it got real quiet real fast. No more patter of rain on the roof or wipers squeaking. All I could hear was the forest creaking and groaning in the wind. Not gonna lie, it felt pretty eerie sitting there all alone with nothing but my thoughts and them swaying shadows cast by the truck lights. Got my nerves jittery real quick like. Tried the CB but couldn't reach Frank or no one for that matter. Too much wet foliage I reckoned, so I just sat tight and watched rivulets of water run down my fogged up windows. Felt like hours I waited, though it probably wasn't more than 30 minutes or so before I finally saw Frank's lights cutting through them woods. He eased on up and parked beside me with a sigh, grabbed his raincoat and hustled on over to my cab, sliding into the passenger seat with a wet slosh. Lordy be, it's coming down in sheets out there. Frank huffed, water dripping off his hat. I can barely see 10 feet in front of me. I just grunted in reply, drumming my fingers on baby's big old steering wheel. Something didn't feel right about this place we were stranded in. The little hairs on my neck were standing straight up, and I could have swore I kept hearing wailing off in the distant trees, like somebody crying over the noise of the storm. Probably just some critter I tried telling myself, but deep down it gave me the heebie-jeebies, something fierce. Frank must have been feeling it too, cause he kept craning his neck to glance out into them darkened woods surrounding us. You hear that, Billy? He whispered after some minutes, eyes darting back and forth nervously. A bone-chilling wail pierced the air, louder and clearer this time. No denying what we was hearing now. In all our years passing through these parts, me and Frank ain't never come across no strangeness in the woods. Always figured them kind of stories were tall tales passed on by bored truckers looking to scare the young pups. Ghost stories for the campfire and such. But right then, sitting there listening to them awful cries echo all around, I felt like a scared little kid peeking under his blanket, afraid of what might be lurking in the dark. Frank fumbled for his little pocket Bible. I just gripped Betsy's wheel tighter, knuckles gone white and breath quicking. I think we both realized we might have stumbled into something we weren't meant to find in them backwoods. Some secret we weren't ever supposed to know about. And as the storm raged on, we sat trapped in our truck cab just waiting for whatever voice was making them terrible sounds. Waiting and praying for the light of dawn so we could hightail it out of that accursed place and back to safety. To this day, I still get panic attacks driving through heavy storms or wooded back roads. Frank and I don't haul lumber down Georgia way no more if we can help it. I don't usually pick up hitchhikers out on those long, dusty rural routes. When you're behind the wheel of a big rig for days on end, you tend to see all types wandering the American byways, some just down on their luck, others who make you clutch the CB radio waiting for their next move. But this one scrawny, defeated-looking wanderer I crossed paths with last month left me questioning my long-time no free rides policy, especially after realizing the poor fellow was wandering around with a full-on bullet hole festering in his belly. It started out like any other tedious Thursday morning hauling freight along I-20 right outside Dallas, with the AC cranked and country classics twanging through the speakers, miles of barren cattle ranch land extended for hours in all directions. Around 10 a.m. or so, maybe 60-some miles from the state border, I spotted something unusual in the otherwise lifeless landscape. A single lone figure trudging slowly along the dusty shoulder ahead. Now that's mighty strange, I thought. Rare to catch a glimpse of wandering souls out in the middle of Nowheresville, so far from any exit of a crossroads. As my rumbling Peterbilt gradually crept up on where this random guy was walking, off on his lonesome against the fence line, I felt an odd protective urge to help out the struggling stick figure dressed in ill-fitting mechanic clothes. Against my better judgment as I neared him, thumbs up baiting for relief from the elements, I found myself downshifting and rolling Big Rusty onto the rocky shoulder. Through the open passenger window I hollered out, asking if he needed a lift towards the next fuel stop, about 45 miles up I-20. The bedraggled guy looked startled but real grateful as I invited him aboard. With a polite tip of his grimy baseball cap, he hoisted a tattered duffel bag inside and climbed up. "Much obliged for salving my bum leg for their punishment, sir," he offered sincerely. "My old truck done broke down a few miles back after the radiator blew. I need to make a call up ahead for some parts once we reach a phone." I nodded casually, examining his oil-stained coveralls and wondering if he was legit, or just spinning a down on his luck yarn that might end with a pocket knife to my ribs once out of view. But something in the wanderer's exhausted, sunken eyes told me he was on the level. I cautiously extended my hand in welcome as he settled in with a pained groan. "Name's Pete," he offered. "Been rough going since my regular garage shut down last month. Just wandering for odd jobs till I get those wheels fixed up." We rode mostly quiet for the next 10 miles once I merged the rumbling Peterbilt back toward the interstate. Aside from brief exchanges about the unusually hot July weather, Pete didn't reveal much about his past or predicament. He seemed grateful but shy, likely just another of life's lost souls drifting from one messy situation to the next. I kept one eye on him in the mirrors, but no cause for concern arose. Until suddenly, around mile marker 54, Pete started moaning like something wasn't right. I looked over to see him grimacing in clear agony, both hands pressed firm into his abdomen. His face had gone sheet white beneath the road grime, eyes clamped tight against what must have been massive pain. Cold sweat dripped from his hairline as he turned my way with a desperate, pleading look that said, "Please God, you gotta help me." I quickly steered Big Rusty onto the breakdown lane so I could have a closer look at Pete, who was still groaning through labored breaths beside me. "You all right there, hoss? What's going on?" I asked, admittedly rattled seeing this grown man looking so anguished. "Nah, sir, it's my stomach," Pete managed to gurgle out between moans. I ran into some trouble back in Lubbock last week with the shop owners I used to work for. We got into it awful bad over missing pay they owed me. Things got heated, and next thing I knew, I caught a bullet in the belly during the fight. My eyes just about popped from their sockets hearing that, but it got exponentially wilder as Pete then gingerly lifted away a blood-soaked square of cloth he'd had tucked discreetly inside his shirt, and the sight that greeted my bulging eyeballs had me questioning reality. because this poor bastard had a raw, oozing bullet hole shredded right into the fleshy part of his abdomen. Fragments of torn skin surround a deep, ravaged puncture, dark blood still steadily seeping from the agonizing wound. "Well, slap me senseless and call me Sally," I exclaimed, horrified by the graphic bodily damage unveiled before me. My mind raced back to Army field training about serious gun injuries. Pete clearly needed emergency surgery and antibiotics at once before infection spread, or he lost any more blood. But to his credit, he hadn't asked me to pull over because of the traumatic wound or demanded any other help really. Likely no health insurance meant he felt resolved to just bear through the no doubt overwhelming torment alone. I quickly dug my emergency trauma bag out from behind Pete's seat. No way would I abandon him without trying my damnedest to patch up that gaping bullet tunnel first. Using all my past military training, I had him recline the seat back to stabilize the injury above heart level. Then I applied direct pressure around the blood-slicked tissues to painfully stem the alarming leakage. Pete was fading fast, face drained and drenched with trauma sweat, but I assured my new friend I'd get him patched up well as I could. No one deserves to miserably meet their maker bleeding out solo in my passenger seat. In the frantic ER intake, once I'd flagged down a speeding ambulance, there was no chance for Pete's full backstory before they whisked him away, but desperate days call for compassion from fellow mankind. So I wished my battered rider well on his coming surgeries and recovery. Then I headed off into the ruthless dusk chorus of Quaalude calls, hoping fortune keeps smiling down on Pete. Last I asked, the surgeon expects him to pull through after some stitches and antibiotics. Reckon he'll have quite the scar and story now, but also a valuable second chance few get. Anyhow, I won't hesitate offering next struggler salvation, just paying decency forward along American byways. I still can't believe the insane chaos that went down during my very first solo haul as a super green rookie trucker. I'm talking high-speed highway robbery chase within hours of hitting the road alone for the first time. Just call me Bad Luck Birdie, I reckon. It was my first assigned long-haul route since getting my commercial license, a short Boston to Providence overnight run hauling some kind of fancy designer socks in the back. I'll admit I felt pretty tense those first few miles heading out completely solo, no trainer riding shotgun anymore. Sure, it was just a basic 3-hour jaunt down familiar I-95. But maneuvering that loaded 18-wheeler alone in the dead of night felt overwhelming, not gonna lie. My white-knuckled hands gripped the wheel at 10 and 2, knuckles almost as pale as the lines on the road. I had the AC cranked trying to combat August mudginess seeping through cracked windows. With only the yellow lane reflectors to focus on in the pitch-dark nothingness, I tried controlling my shaky breathes. But the complete isolation made my thoughts start spiraling about all the things I could go bump out there in the wooded median. Was probably just trucker nerves though, right? Surely I was the only sorry soul reckless enough to be driving these risky stretches at 2 a.m. As I squinted against a pair of bright high beams speeding up aggressively behind me, I attempted a self-pep talk. You got this, girl. Just a few more miles to go. Probably just another long hauler wanting to blast past my cautious 45 miles per hour pace. But as the engine roar amplified, something primordial in my gut whispered that sinister forces were enclosing fast off that rear horizon. My pulse pounded louder than Dolly's vintage country classics wailing from the crackly radio about working 9 to 5 as the giant lights veered up beside me. Acting on pure instinct, I quickly locked the heavy doors before risking a glance at the approaching vehicle. I instantly regretted looking over because my worst fears were confirmed. It was a freaking ski mask wearing madman leaning out the rolled down passenger window of a menacing black van, erratically waving what clearly was a metallic pistol out at me. Oh hell no, not today, creepo. I involuntarily yelled, stomping the accelerator in sheer panic once my brain processed the ambush unfolding at 65 miles per hour. But with those 18 clumsy wheels feeling like a swooping albatross under my novice command, I ended up jackknifing violently across all 4 lanes when trying to swerve away from shooter's range. So much for evasive action. Cheesy road safety videos never prepared me for this. By some stroke of dumb luck, though, I managed to straighten the violently fishtailing trailer before losing entire control. Cajoling every ounce of power from that straining diesel V8, I coaxed old Rusty faster than either of us had moved in years. My shaky right hand almost abandoned steering duty to grab the CB and scream Mayday. But then I had a lightning bolt memory about the high-tech onboard tracking systems mandatory in all big rigs now. As long as I could keep this American psycho entertained on my tail a while, technology would auto-snitch my location in real time to the proper highway authorities. So I steeled my jittery nerves and pushed the pedal practically through the floor, keeping just ahead of the maniacal masked bandito slicing through the inky night behind me. My trailer fishtailed wildly around curves as we blew past startled local traffic like some hijacked Smokey in the Bandit rerun. I knew such risky moves at top speeds could easily send my inexperienced double-load toppling ass over tin cups. But it was either take my chances arguing physics or get robbed and then shot in the head by this relentless road fiend. After several harrowing miles of live-action bumper car pinball down I-95's twisting infrastructure, I finally noticed a reckless dipstick starting to fall behind, losing steam. When I peeked back to see those glowing devil eyes shrinking in my mirror, I whispered a prayer up to the highway angels. Of course, that determined bastard took it as a personal challenge. He slammed his pedal flat once more, squealing back up dangerously close to my trailer doors as I passed the Route 146 exit signs. I could hear his muffled profanity even over tire roar as he bellowed what he'd do when he finally caught me. Before I could fully panic at the glinting pistol barrel waved in my direction, the glorious sound I'd been longing for finally echoed from behind police sirens. My guardian GPS had come through after all. I saw the road rager's snarling face whip around at the sirens before he screeched away in a plume of burning rubber. Still, I kept Big Rusty floored a few more miles just to be safe, rattling like a box of rocks over rumble strips with licorice death grip on the wheel. Once my pulse finally slowed to non-stroke levels, it really sunk in that I had miraculously survived my baby's trial by fire. I shakily limped the rig into the Providence delivery dock well past dawn, the cab's leather seats utterly soaked through with panic sweat. The warehouse manager was puzzled why a routine sock shipment had triggered company security alerts about driver distress calls and location anomalies. But once I showed him the bullet dents in the battered doors and security cam footage of the entire terrifying circuit, even the crankiest manager cracked a relieved smile that I'd made it in one piece. After such a violently bizarre crash course introduction into the trucker trade, I'll sure have stories to share at the rest stops for years to come. Maybe I really am who they'll call Bad Luck Birdie from here on out, though. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.